And good evening. We are doing it live right here, weeknights, at our new time of the 5 o'clock hour in Los Angeles. Yabba Dabba Do time, by the way, 5 o'clock hour. Motac on Money, 5 nights a week for you, live on the air here, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com and the on-demand Motac on Money podcast at KBC.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. And stay tuned for the 790 KBC News Blitz at 6 with our Legal Eagle, Royal Oaks, hosting tonight. Well, mixed finish for stocks today after a volatile trading session. Investors weighing rising bond yields again, impacting fixed-rate mortgage rates continuing to climb. The impact of rising gas and oil prices on inflation, the possibility of a government shutdown, also now in the mix, and the big auto workers strike and resumption of student loan repayments also in focus. All this a day after the Dow's biggest one-day plunge since March, back during the time we saw those bank failures. Today we saw the Dow down again, 69 points, settling at 33,550. The S&P 500 held on to a closing gain of 1 point, and the Nasdaq moved up 29. The Dow got a lift early on a report from the Commerce Department showing orders for long-lasting or so-called durable goods rising a stronger than expected 0.2% in August. Durable goods orders minus defense orders, though, actually fell 0.7% last month, but the so-called core orders, which takes out defense and transportation, rose 0.9%. Treasury yields continuing to decline, pushing the 10 and 30-year rates to new multi-year highs. We'll be taking a closer look at that here in just a moment. The FDA Advisory Committee voted against a treatment from a company called Brainstorm Cell Therapeutics. That stock moved down 8%. They voted against a treatment for ALS. The FDA's panel vote was 17-1, with one advisor abstaining. Have you heard the latest idea to address homelessness in Los Angeles? The idea to tear down the Marina Freeway and turn it into a park and affordable housing space? Well, we'll go big on that story tonight. Get reaction from Los Angeles business and civic leader Rick Caruso, former L.A. mayoral candidate. The amazing Angelino, the business community was rooting for to become mayor of Los Angeles, developer of the most successful shopping destinations here in Southern California, and mega philanthropist, too. Rick Caruso will be joining us live later this hour. And also what's happening in Venice and LA's west side on the homeless front, including this idea now to tear down the Marina Freeway. I'll discuss things further tonight with Soledad Ursua, a Venice Neighborhood Council board member. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, gas and oil prices soaring, inflation, and the whole works tonight. Joining us live now, Jonathan Hoenig, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Big Hedge Fund, and author of the book, Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Great time to have you with us here tonight, Jonathan. Thanks for taking the call. We see an uptick in volatility in that bad market day yesterday, and only a slight rebound today for some of the major averages. Gas and oil prices soaring. Give us your assessment of things here at the moment.
First, great to be with you. Look, they say that the trend is our friend, but if you're a bull on the stock market, the trend is simply not in our favor, at least not right now. I mean, today, as you said, yesterday was an absolute abysmal day for stocks. Today was basically more of the same. Look underneath the hood. You saw 50 new highs today, over 400 new lows. So the trend is very much down. In fact, 80% of stocks are trading below their short-term moving average. Almost 70% are trading below their longer-term moving average. So, there's a lot of factors buffeting the markets, but more than any of them, Frank, it's interest rates, which, as you said, continue to climb at a rate that, is pretty shocking to those of us who've watched the markets for quite some time. Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan talking about the potential for 7% interest rates. That's heavy, Frank. That's certainly heavy, and I think that's exactly what's flummoxing the markets writ large.
On there live with Jonathan Hoenig. Let's talk about that. And by the way, the volatility index kissed a 4-month high today. A nervous time on Wall Street, given what's happening with those bond yields, which we don't often talk about, but that's certainly something very important to discuss at this point, impacting, of course, consumers as well when it comes to fixed-rate mortgage rates, among other things. How much higher are these rates going to go?
Well, I mean, there's no support at this point, Frank. I mean, that's what's so frightening is, you have investors in supposedly safe U.S. bonds who've lost 20, 30%. In fact, Frank, if you bought a long-term U.S. bond a year and a half ago from the government-insured bond, you are down almost 50% on your money. And that's back when, interest rates were at 1%, 2%. They're more than double now. And Frank, I think this is having a particularly bad impact on what they call those interest rate sensitive parts of the market. A lot of utilities at 52-week lows today, a lot of real estate investment trusts at 52-week lows today. So, this is a trend towards higher inflation, higher interest rates. I just think it's going to be very difficult for stocks to make any headway as long as rates continue to go up seemingly day after day after day.
All right. And the Fed, of course, has signaled another rate hike is likely ahead as inflation continues to remain hot and now getting even hotter here with oil hitting a new high for the year recently. Gas prices soaring. I don't know if you've been seeing these prices here in Southern California, but on social media, if you go to my X handle or Twitter handle, you'll see some of the photos posted today of what's out there. It's unbelievable. Approaching new highs again here in this area. So, Jonathan, what do you see ahead for the Fed's next move, and what do you see ahead on the inflation front?
Well, there's no tops in a bull market, at least the bull market now, Frank. It's not in stocks. It's not in high technology. It's in oil and energy prices. So I think, investors can buy something, pretty plain Jane, if you will. Good old ExxonMobil, XOM, reaching out to new multi-month highs today. So focus on energy stocks. They're going to do particularly well. PXJ is one that owns some of the explorers and related stocks that we own over at capitalspig.com. But, Frank, in the 1970s, stocks, the S&P was a disaster. Only oil stocks held up. So for anything like that type of an inflationary decade, you're going to continue to make money in oil stocks. They're the strongest part of the equity market right now, and I think that trend continues.
Big oil, that was what they were talking about back in those days. You're absolutely right. And any other ports in the storm that you see at this point?
Yeah, I still think, Frank, money's going to be made, although, risk is off the table writ large now, and, investors are really buckling down. But I think if I had to buy stock right now, you want to look to some of those emerging markets. I still believe that they're absurdly cheap. Even something as off the radar screen as the Philippines, the ETF over there that tracks those stocks, EPHE is one that we own. But, more than anything, Frank, as Jesse Livermore used to say, there's a time to go long, a time to go short, and a time to go fishing. I think now is a great time, given the increasing risks, higher rates, higher inflation, to sit on one's hands and have plenty of powder ahead. Stocks are moving lower from here.
On there live with Jonathan Hoenig, and new concerns about the Chinese economy, especially in the property sector, with more defaults happening there. What do you see happening with China, and would you be touching anything China related?
Yeah, it's a great example, Frank. The more controlled an economy, the more centrally planned, the worse it has been. China had a magnificent period of growth there. Basically, in the early 2000s, that was the period they were liberalizing their economy. They were privatizing businesses. Government was getting out of the way. In the last decade, they've basically reversed course completely, and that's why that economy has suffered so dramatically. You've got one of their major property developers basically going into liquidation. They've got this tremendous excess of housing that was been completed, basically government-mandated work projects now all sitting empty. So China is a very, very difficult place to invest. Why? Because of all that central planning. I do think, however, again, for adventurous investors, CHIE, that's CHIE, it's actually an ETF that owns China-related energy stocks. So sticking within the energy theme, but I think that's one place, if you have a little bit more risk tolerance, you might want to look to make some money in the weeks ahead. CHIE, of course, do your own due diligence as well.
Very interesting. All right. What about the travel names? It's hard to ignore that Norwegian Cruise Lines today, one of the big movers on the upside in an otherwise pretty dull market today. That stock was up nearly 6%. What about the cruise lines and the airlines at this point?
Well, Frank, the airlines I've watched basically for the last 3 months, and I know you've watched them as well. You've watched them go into the absolute toilet. What a ride they've been on. A JetBlue on down to Frontier Airlines. Airlines are a very, very difficult place to invest right now. And I think they've got, and cruises and travel writ large, I think they've got two things moving against them. First and foremost is a weakening consumer. You've seen a lot of retail names weakening now. The consumer is increasingly going into record levels of credit card debt. That's weighing on a lot of the travel names. And, of course, the higher gas prices as well, the higher oil prices as well. That's money directly out of their bottom line. So I've been frankly shocked, Frank, how low a lot of those airlines have gone, and I wouldn't be touching those names. I think there's new lows ahead for much in the travel space, given how weak the consumer is becoming.
All right. It looks like Hollywood trying to get going again with that deal with the writers and the studios. And now we're waiting for some deal involving the actors and the studios. What about the media names here?
You know, they've been so extraordinarily weak, Frank. I think Disney is one you can buy if you truly are that long-term investor. You know, that's the irony. A lot of people say that they're a long-term investor, but after 6 months, after a year, you know, they've got other interests. And okay, we'll get me out. I'll get something else. If you really have that 3 to 5 year time horizon, Disney is one I think you can own. But the best, without question, the best media-related name is Charter Communication. Look, I don't love the cable bill more than anyone else, but Charter CHTR is the strongest name. I have to say though, Frank, I don't think the strikes are over just yet. Just as the writers are finishing up their strike, you know, you've got word that out of Las Vegas, the bartenders and the culinarians, the waiters, etc., are planning a strike as well. So we're going to continue to see this pressure for higher wages from labor leaders as inflation spins out of control.
Right, and it's hard to ignore the UAW strike with President Biden walking with the strikers. Unprecedented to see a president joining a union strike action like this, especially what happened back during the financial crisis when these auto companies had to be bailed out. What about the auto names here and your reaction to what's happening with this big strike?
I was disappointed to see that, Frank. I mean, I just don't think it's the government's role to pick sides and, you know, disagreements, business disagreements between its citizens. I was disappointed to see that. And I think the auto companies are a tough place to invest right now. Ironically, Ford is the best of the bunch, but here's another name that's way down from its multi-year highs. And I think I'd rather be focusing on energy more than anything else right now, given the uncertainty in the economy writ large.
All right. What about the EV companies? Tesla's been on a wild ride this year, and the other ones have seen a bumpy ride, right? Any thoughts about the electric vehicle companies?
There's so many of those names, Frank, that came public in the last 2 and 3 years through what were called these SPAC deals. Very exciting. Lucid, I believe, is the name of one of the EV companies. There were a lot of these startups that went public with great excitement, great, huge valuations. Nearly all of them have fizzled out. And Frank, I think essentially what you're going to see with the EV space is just as in 1999 and 2000, certain companies were considered, quote, internet companies. They got these massive valuations because they were the internet companies. I think you'll see the same transformation. And companies that were highly valued because they were EV companies, that shine is basically off the rose. And even a company I think as innovative as Tesla, I think it's going to have real difficulty as basically the market's attention turns to other areas, not to EVs so much. In fact, Frank, some of the worst performers this year, ironically, have been the alternative energy names, solar and the wind, all the green energy names that the president had championed with the supposed Inflation Reduction Act. Those have been terrible stocks, some of them down 60 and 70%. So stick with good old black gold, stick with crude oil and
Texas tea.
Both as an investor, Texas tea in the months to come.
Very well laid out, and you're absolutely right about that. Now, just at a time when consumers are wrestling with inflation and looking for bargains, going to Amazon, for example, going online, the government going after Amazon here, accusing the company of illegally maintaining monopoly power. What's your reaction to this government action against Amazon, and what's your outlook on Amazon here?
Very frustrating, Frank. I mean, Amazon hard to think of a company that has benefited so many people on such a scale in the last 20 years as Amazon. I mean, forget even in terms of just what it's selling, but what about in terms of what it allows other people to sell? I mean, Amazon revolutionized the world. They made it better. And in fact, the Justice Department official who's levying these charges, Frank, she has had a vendetta, a personal vendetta, in my opinion, against Amazon since she was a grad student going on for years. So, you know, my fear is basically what can happen to Amazon is what happened to Microsoft. You know, Microsoft hit an all-time high back in 2000, basically the same month that the Justice Department went after it for antitrust in 2000. Back then it was over its browser. Remember, Microsoft ruled the browser market, and Microsoft stock endured a decade of subpar returns after that suit was filed. So I'm very disappointed to see the government going after a magnificent law-abiding company like Amazon, hindering its shareholders, hindering its growth, and I think ultimately hindering the economy overall.
You said it. You used the word magnificent. That magnificent seven. We see the tech stocks have entered correction territory here, threatening to topple this year's rally. What about those magnificent seven at this point?
Weakness begets more weakness. I mean, these were names that you had to own for quite some time, Frank. They were the only place to make money. And look, a lot of people believe in buying dips, but the problem with buying dips is that you don't know when a dip is a dip or the beginning of a significant bear market. So, I think many of these names, if you have them in your portfolio, this is my opinion, you can hold on to them. I don't think you exit out completely. But in terms of putting new money to work, like the old saying, Frank, you have to kind of go where the action is when it comes to stocks. And the action simply is not in technology. In fact, the bloom looks to be off that rose. New money right now is going to cash or it's going to energy. That's what's getting new investor attention right now.
All right. And last but not least, any other thoughts here, Jonathan Hoenig? Any other specific places where it'd be putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, Frank, you want to have options. You've got a record number of Americans doing what they call hardship 401k withdrawals, record number of credit card debt, level of credit card debt. So, most people, unfortunately, are hurting. And it's all about inflation. The same basket of goods and services cost $730 more this month than it did 2 years ago. So we're talking about the average American, Frank, $8,500, maybe $9,000 extra a year. That's serious money. And so I think now more than anything else is a great time, not even to be putting money to work, but to be putting your financial house in order, paying down that credit card debt and trying to get a 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses on the sidelines. I think if most Americans could do that, they'd be in much better shape given the inevitable recession that's likely to come in the months ahead.
And watch out for falling knives. Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for that comprehensive conversation here tonight. As always, we appreciate it, and we'll be looking for you on social media, Jonathan Hoenig, on X, formerly known as Twitter. Jonathan Hoenig, Fox News contributor, portfolio manager at Capitalist Big Hedge Fund, author of the book Price is Primary, How to Profit with Any Asset in Any Market at Any Time. Jonathan, thanks again. Have a wonderful evening.
Oh, you're the best, Frank. Be well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And let's get right out to the freeways now here on 790 KBC. Folks, the future of joint pain relief is here. It's called QC Kinetics, Advanced Regenerative Medicine. Amazing stuff here. Frank Motek speaking. Now, if you've been told many steroids or surgery are your only options, don't be so fast about that. Get a second opinion. Learn more about how you can harness your body's own healing agents to attack that joint pain. Now, I'm talking lasting pain relief. QC Kinetics does not mask the pain. These treatments go right to the very root of the problem, using concentrated healing properties placed directly in your joint to restore and repair that damaged joint tissue. Imagine living your life this fall. No more pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, or back. No drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Life's about motion, and QC Kinetics is giving people their lives back with these all-natural treatments. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. QC Kinetics, locations in Glendale, the city of Orange, Mission Viejo, and now also in Costa Mesa. The number to call is 213-997-PAIN. 213-997-PAIN. Again, that's 213-997-PAIN. Motek on Money continues here in 790 KBC. Good evening. Mixed finish to the day on Wall Street, coming off that nasty day we had yesterday, the biggest one-day plunge for the Dow seen since March. Today, down again for the Dow, down 69 points at 33,550. The S&P 500 held on to a closing gain of 1 point at 4,274, and what turned out to be another volatile trading session with the VIX index, the volatility index, kissing a 4-month high during the trading day. The Nasdaq moved higher by 29 points, settling at 13,093. Once again, bond yields moving higher, and that's a big story in the markets right now. The yield in the 10-year note has shot to 4.61%. That's the highest we've seen in about 16 years, since 2007. And it's moving up, and that's taking along the mortgage rates with it, which are hovering at more than 20-year highs. The price of oil also moving higher to a new high of the year, up 19 cents at $93.87 a barrel in New York. Have you seen gas prices lately at Southern California gas pumps? Well, let's take a look here right now. The average price for regular has moved up to $6.16 a gallon, up another couple cents overnight. Premium now averaging $6.49 a gallon. $6.49, by the way, was the record high price paid for regular gas last October. So premium already up at $6.49, and the diesel now averaging $6.47 a gallon in the L.A. Long Beach area. Taking a look at the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up about $120 at 26,364. Ethereum up 4 at 1,598. And Doge holding steady at 6 cents. Taking a look at some of the movers today, we see shares of Costco wholesale moving up nearly 2% after the Warehouse Club's earnings topped analyst expectations. And Costco's company's chief financial officer said that theft had not risen dramatically over the past year. They're the ones that always check those receipts as you move out of the store. Paychecks closing higher by 3.5% after that human resources services company reported fiscal first quarter profit and revenue that rose above expectations and nudged up its full year outlook. Among the movers on the upside today, we see shares of Norwegian Caribbean Cruise Line moving up nearly 6%. On the downside by nearly 8% today, NextEra Energy moving lower today and ended lower by about 8%. And now the latest news for you right here on 790 KABC. Motac on Money continues here in 790 KABC. Have you ever heard of a freeway described as underutilized on the west side of Los Angeles? What about the idea of tearing down a freeway and creating a park and affordable housing? Well, those are some of the thoughts being circulated these days. In fact, a new study looking into converting one Los Angeles County freeway into a park with low-cost housing now being floated. The plan already reportedly has the backing of some L.A. city leaders, including Mayor Karen Bass. The Marina Central Park study, a potential plan which would convert the 90 freeway, that's the Marina Freeway on the west side that stretches from Marina Del Rey to Culver City, and turn the stretch into a park. We're going to go big on this story tonight. The idea to tear down the Marina Freeway, turn it into a park and affordable housing space. What do you think about it? Well, let's first of all get some reaction here from Los Angeles business and civic leader Rick Caruso, former L.A. mayoral candidate. The amazing Angelino, the business community, was rooting for to become mayor of Los Angeles, developer of the most successful shopping destinations here in Southern California, mega philanthropist too. Rick Caruso joining us live now. Rick Caruso, what's your reaction to this idea that's being discussed here?
Well, Frank, how you doing? Thank you for having me on tonight. I'm actually calling in from Washington, D.C., so if you want to have some crazy ideas, spend some time in Washington. But listen, I think it's a foolish idea. I can't imagine any idea that's more foolish. The idea of building housing and building a park is phenomenal. I think that's great. The hundreds of millions of dollars it will take to tear down an existing freeway and convert it just doesn't make sense. We've got so much land that's underutilized in L.A. County. We don't need to be doing this. So, unfortunately, I think we have a lot of elected officials that have never had to really make money and spend their own money. It's easy to spend taxpayer money. Let's spend taxpayer money on things that are really productive and efficient. Let's build more housing, which we certainly need. Let's have more park space, which we certainly need. But leave the freeway there and let's find some alternative locations for this. I think it's foolhardy.
In all your time in Los Angeles, have you ever heard of a freeway described as underutilized, especially on the west side of Los Angeles?
I haven't. And I think so many of us, including me, have driven that freeway. And listen, I think if you talk to people in the area, they probably need the freeway and use that freeway. I know when I lived down in the Marina years ago, that was a freeway I used on a daily basis. But again, this is what just I think is so frustrating to so many of us, that they're spending their time, our money, on thinking about doing these things that make absolutely no sense. And we've got to move this city forward and start building housing quickly. Getting the funding and approval to tear down a freeway is going to take decades. Let's do some things that actually make a difference and make people's lives better, and do it now, and do it efficiently, and use our money smartly.
On there live with Rick Caruso. It's great to hear you speaking out on these issues. We did hear from the president of CBRE here in Southern California. Lou Horn gave a big speech last week at a real estate conference talking about this ULA tax, which is impacting commercial as well as residential real estate. You said it's the dumbest thing we've ever seen. What's your reaction to this ULA issue here?
Well, I think it ranks on top of the dumbest thing of tearing down a freeway. And, certainly the ULA tax is dumb. It's not well thought out, and it's hurting everybody in the city of Los Angeles. And it was completely fraud the way it was billed as a mansion tax. It affects every piece of property in the city of Los Angeles from the standpoint that now investment is slowing up in LA City because of the additional tax. Lending is slowing up. It affects the ability for people to expand their businesses. If they have to sell their home, sell their office building, whatever it is, apartment house, you have an additional tax. You go right across the street into Culver City, Glendale, or neighboring cities throughout LA County, there's not this tax. So what happens? Money is going to be invested in places that will garner the highest rate of return with the greatest level of safety. And adding a tax in LA City just impacts business and small businesses. I hope to God it gets overturned. I hope it gets on the ballot to be overturned because people now see for what it is, and it's got really a negative impact on the city.
And this is that city transfer tax on property sales above $5 million that was supposed to raise money to alleviate homelessness. It's not panning out at all the way it was planned, and as you mentioned, was sold as a mansion tax, but is certainly impacting commercial real estate. And now one thing that came out of that conference reports that L.A. County is considering a similar measure. What would your reaction be to that, seeing a ULA-style tax throughout Los Angeles County?
We've got to elect people that really understand how to run a county, how to run a city, how it impacts people's daily lives. We don't need more taxes. We have a lot of money. We all pay a lot of taxes, more than most anybody in this country, in the city of Los Angeles. So we don't need that. We need to learn to spend our money more wisely. We need to encourage investments to grow our economy, create jobs, create more jobs for small businesses. Overtaxing does just the opposite. So I hope our voters, our residents in the city and the county, really think about electing people that are concerned about the quality of life, the safety of the people in the city and the county. And it's not going to happen by raising taxes. It's actually going to hurt us.
As a leading business voice here in Southern California, and then again, all of us are inspired by your tremendous spirit here, and want to get your view of how this economy is looking these days, and what's your outlook here at this point?
Frank, I'm worried about it. I don't, you see the 10-year inched up again today. The market had a little bit of gains today, but overall the last couple of weeks has been down. That's the market, which is separate from the economy. But the rising interest rates, eventually there's got to be a breaking point where we're going to see the consumer pulling back. And there's going to be a lag time to that, right? And I just hope that the Fed does not continue to raise the rates, allow this to play out. But I worry about the consumer because I worry about, again, small businesses. I worry about jobs. For a small business, their cost of capital goes up. Their interest rates are going up. Their ability to bring in new inventory, the cost goes up. Inflation is still out there. So I don't know if there's a hard landing or a soft landing, but I think that we're going to see some cracks in this economy, and the consumer is going to start pulling back, and we're all going to be feeling it. So my hope is that we allow interest rates to just stay the way they are, play this thing out until the end of the year, and then see where we're at in the beginning of the year. And hopefully, which I don't think is going to happen, but hopefully we start dropping interest rates. The Fed drops rates in the first quarter, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen.
I hope you can set them straight in Washington this evening. We'll let you get back to what's happening there. Rick Caruso, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this evening.
Thank you, Frank. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rick Caruso live with us here this evening on Motac on Money on 790 KABC. Right now, out to the freeways we go for the very latest right now. Friends, if you're hurt in an accident, you need an experienced advocate, and Clark Fielding and his team of sharks at Fielding Law are on standby, ready to dive into your case. My friend Clark the Shark is fearless for justice and your go-to attorney when injured in an accident that wasn't your fault. Whether it's a car accident, slip, trip, or fall, or any other personal injury, Fielding Law is here to make sure you get the care, attention, and compensation you deserve. Fielding Law can assess the circumstances of the case, negotiate tenaciously with insurance companies, and if needed, file a lawsuit and litigate to seek fair compensation on behalf of you, the injured party. An injury is a major disruption in your life. Medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, property damage, and other losses incurred as a result of the injury part of the damages. Don't try and handle this process alone. You need an expert in the process. The team at Fielding Law are the ones to trust. Put Clark Fielding's number in your phone under the word accident. That number is 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Motac on Money continues here in 790 KABC. We just got the reaction from Rick Caruso on this idea to tear down the Marina Freeway and turn it into a park and affordable housing space. Let's talk more about this now, and let's bring in an expert on what's happening on the west side on the business and the homeless issue, Soledad Ursua, a Venice Neighborhood Council board member, live with us here now. Soledad, thank you very much for taking the call. You probably have seen the reports here, the idea of looking into converting the 90 freeway, the Marina Freeway, to a park and homelessness, and reportedly has the backing of some city leaders, including Mayor Karen Bass. Give us your reaction to this report.
Well, so remember, first people wanted us to reimagine public safety. Now they want us to reimagine our freeways and highways. So just right there, it doesn't sound, very promising for the average taxpayer. And what we're seeing is, this group of community activists, it should be noted that Streets for All, that is really the group behind this major initiative. They are actually a 501c4. That's a non-profit political action group that's involved in elections. And so they are the ones that have come up with this idea. They've pushed for quite a few others. For instance, they're behind many of the road diets that we've seen on the west side. What they do is they take away lanes of traffic and they put in protected bike paths. And what they try to do is Venice Boulevard. They are trying to do an initiative similar to that, but it would actually cut off visitor access to the beach. So these initiatives, these are coming forward by sort of this group of transportation alternative communities, people who want protected bike lanes. They don't have to drive to work. Maybe they are, remote workers. And they have this idealistic vision that cars are not necessary, that freeways are somehow racist, and that we need walkable communities where, just everybody's living there and there's no cars. So that is really their vision for Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it's just so far from reality.
And this is the group that's looking for $2 million to study tearing down the freeway, right?
Right. And Mayor Karen Bass, she actually represented Culver City when she was in Congress. She wrote a letter basically, supporting this measure and asking for the funds to do the study. And everybody says it's just a study. Don't worry about it. But time and time again, it's always the study that is the first step towards these disastrous policies.
Give us the real on what's happening. Anyone who's driven down across the Venice Boulevard can see for themselves what's going on there. But since you're right there at the ground level and interact with business people there and homeowners, what is the situation there these days?
What people forget is that, maybe they say that this is an underused freeway, but this isn't some sleepy suburb. This is the west side of Los Angeles. We have the Marina Harbor. We have Venice Beach, which hosts 10 million visitors annually. We have Loyola Marymount University. We have Los Angeles International Airport. This is the west side. This is a major commercial corridor. Most people take Lincoln Boulevard. That's what I take normally. But for people in sort of this pocket, the 90 freeway is what gets you to the 405. So this is a major connector. And it's just, this would crush businesses. It would also just make traffic so unbearable. You have to ask yourself, how are we going to get emergency vehicles through rush hour sort of shutdown time? One thing I keep thinking about from the Maui fires, I'm sure you saw that, was the line of cars when they're trying to exit and to get away from the fire, and it looks like they just, perished and just burnt to the ground there. I mean, this would be disastrous in case of emergency. Residents on the west side would have no ability to get out.
I've never heard of any freeway, let alone street, described as underutilized on the west side of Los Angeles. Have you?
No way. And I mean, I travel the 90, multiple times a week. It's something that you need to have. So it's completely ridiculous that they're now trying to reimagine this. But again, this is this group, I deal with them quite a bit. On the Venice Neighborhood Council, they've tried to bring these, initiatives to us. These are the same people. I realize this because I remember their names. People, sending us emails. They're the same people that are behind the defund the police movement. So you sort of see that overlap there. They're very young. I guess these are the Zoomers, the Gen Zers, and they are very idealistic. They believe that they should have protected bike lanes. They work from home. And so they just have this vision for Los Angeles that is just not grounded in reality and would actually be very detrimental for working class families. How are they going to get people to their jobs? So they have this vision, but it's quite regressive in that it would really hurt working class families.
What is the homeless situation looking like now there at Venice Beach?
It's getting much better. We have reduced the encampments. The problem now, it's always kind of, the problem keeps moving. Now we're having a problem with RVs and vans because we still have not gone back to enforcing any parking laws. So we have RVs parked on our streets that have been there since March 2020. And that's because the city council decided to suspend many of our municipal codes to slow the spread of COVID. We still have not gone back to enforcing laws that we had on the books prior to COVID. So fortunately for us, the encampments are, much reduced, which is a great benefit. But now we're seeing this huge influx. And people are still driving in with their RVs. You see them, circling around the west side looking for parking spots. So, it's quite a slow process, and I hope that we can return to full enforcement. But the city cannot even give us a timeline of when we can expect that.
Remember last time we spoke, you were outraged when you had to deal with somebody homeless in an RV, right? And actually they ended up attacking you, if I recall correctly.
Yes, somebody had pulled up in front of my neighbor's house. I asked nicely if they had moved because my neighbor has 5 young children, and it did not go well. I do not recommend doing that, and the person threatened to kill me and chased me. That person actually, they came back a month later and parked right there again. So there's no rules for them. And what we're seeing is that, vans are coming in. There's actually a van lord. There's somebody who owns all these RVs and vans, and they're renting them to the homeless. So the city council is now starting to take action. They have, so that they're trying to crack down on that, but there's no indication of when we can start towing again. And what we've seen in the process is that more people have come here, especially to the west side, where we have zero parking regulation for homeless. But what's unfortunate is I will get a ticket. I will get a ticket right away if I'm parked on the street during street cleaning. So it's really only enforcement for tax-paying, law-abiding citizens.
Isn't that awful? Well, it sounds like tearing down the Marina Freeway is not the solution. At least they're not suggesting tearing down the 405 yet.
Well, not yet. And remember, the basis for all this is they keep saying, we're going to build affordable homes for the homeless. But let's remember what that means in Los Angeles. Right now, developers are spending nearly $1 million per unit of permanent supportive housing. And these units, these $1 million units, they're only about 450 square feet. So it's not actually affordable to the taxpayer. Maybe it's affordable to the homeless person who gets free housing for the rest of their lives. Yeah. But so again, we're going to build affordable housing. It's not affordable for the taxpayer.
Thank you very much for that thorough reaction to what's being discussed here. Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council Board Member. Thank you very much, Soledad, for joining us live here tonight. Motac on Money, 790 KABC.
Hey guys, it's Susie Schuster, and I am so excited for my new podcast coming out this fall. It is called What the Football with Susie Schuster and the Princess of Darkness, Amy Trask. If you're looking for a new podcast to listen to about jargon, heavy-legged waist benders, this is not for you. We're going to have big girl conversations and we are going super deep to bring you weekly guests that you won't find anywhere else. It is What the Football with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask, wherever you listen.